Hello everyone, my name is Pixlriffs and welcome back to another snapshot video. This is Snapshot 21w18a, the latest snapshot for the Caves and Cliffs update, and once again I'm going to be exploring in survival to test out how the survival progression has changed a little bit. And this is going to be a world with the Caves and Cliffs preview datapack enabled, so the majority of this video is going to focus on changes which are coming in the second half of the Caves and Cliffs update 1.18. Which, remember, is not going to be due out until later this year, probably sometime around the winter holiday season. Now, the reason we're doing this in survival is because I care a great deal about the progression of the game, and a lot of the changes being made now are for balancing reasons for Caves and Cliffs stuff, and it's mainly all about the redistribution of ores and how early we can get hold of this stuff. And the reason for doing this in survival, of course, is that survival is where these things matter, and of course, the first thing I do when I dig down is find diorite. Find me some stone, for goodness sake, I need to make a pickaxe. Well, the second thing I hit was gravel, so we're probably going to go and dig into the side of a nearby cliff, or alternatively we can make for this village, which seems to have generated kind of half out on the water, but I can already see an iron golem over there, so maybe we'll get some easy iron from him. Iron has actually been one of the things affected by the latest changes to this data pack, but I want to point out that one of the things that's happened in this snapshot is that the Mojang team has been working diligently to figure out the problems causing those lag spikes and freezes that we were seeing when we crossed over into different chunks. And from the performance I can see so far, I've only spent about 2 minutes in this snapshot already, but it does seem like they've got those early issues nipped in the bud. So that's a big credit to the Mojang team for getting that one sorted out. Hopefully we won't see too many of those issues arising in future. But it looks like we've got a few villagers around here. I'm probably going to steal a little bit of these hay bales for food, and then we can probably take down a few blocks of cobblestone from one of these houses. Since the villagers won't be needing them for all that long, we don't intend to keep this world permanently, I can at least make myself a stone axe, and with that, we should be able to take out this golem and get ourselves some iron. Here we go, he's on his way over, and I'm just going to take him out for some nice easy iron ingots to begin with, and then we're going to go caving. I really prefer to go caving with a shield these days, and I think the main thing we want to test out is where exactly we're going to find certain ores, because the main changes in this data pack are now that iron should be generating closer to the surface more frequently, and that copper is generating maybe a little bit less frequently. And I'll go into exactly why that's the case in a second or two, but it looks like we have enough at least for an iron pickaxe, and I need a little bit more wood so I can get myself a shield. While we're here, we may as well take out these 3 sheep so we can get enough wool for a bed. I've got a few more hay bales that we can use to craft some food, and there we go. With all of that broken down into some bread and a bed, I feel a little bit safer going caving. So let's see if we can find a decent surface cave, because we didn't really cover this in the last video, but there are now new cave formations to look out for as we're traversing the underground. And this might well be one of them, actually. Noodle caves were added in the last snapshot, and originally these were sort of smaller and a little bit more claustrophobic, and they've now been widened out a little bit, because according to a bit of player feedback, Mojang decided that players didn't really like how narrow these caves were, and decided to open them out a little bit more. So right now these are looking a little bit more like the old style caves, but the idea is that they go for much longer and connect elements of the underground together. So you'll find longer caves that have less of a chance of dead ending, and yeah, it looks like we might actually have one here. A little bit of copper down there as well, and this one seems like it's going to go for a fair distance down into the rock here before it reaches an end. Okay, so maybe it's not quite connecting everything together just yet, but maybe these noodle caves are something we need to look out for. And it certainly has a different shape than the cave carvers that we are used to from 1.16 generation and earlier, so that's good to know as well. They've also reduced the amount of copper spawning. It might be that this is a vein of copper, since it is generating right next to a clump of granite here, but this does just look like a normal cluster of copper, so we probably don't have a vein here. Copper is supposed to be reduced in generation a little bit here to compensate for the fact that there are large ore veins in the world. We have been talking about the balance of copper a lot recently, both in these videos and in my podcast, The Spawn Chunks, which I do every week with my friend Joel. We talk about all of the latest Minecraft news, and lately we've been talking about the balance of how big these copper veins are and whether we feel like that has a place in Minecraft gameplay. Right now, copper obviously isn't used for a whole lot, so I think a lot of people might end up finding it irritating just to find copper everywhere when you're really looking for more useful materials, but for those of us who are likely to build with copper later, I still think it's great that we have nice, easy access to a bunch of this material, and who knows, it might have other uses in future. But we had that discussion on the last video, so you can go and check out last week's snapshot video if you're interested in that. And in the meantime, you might be wondering why I'm not making too many other videos. Well, episode 360 of the survival guide is going to be quite a big one, in which I do another 360-degree tour, so that's going to take a little while longer. Oh, there we go, we got our first surface iron there, and a zombie has come to fight me for it, apparently. Yeah, I'm standing here and I'm still seeing quite a lot of copper nearby. Once again, a patch there next to some granite, but that doesn't look like it's going to be a large copper vein. We've got some in the ground over here and some right here. So despite copper having been reduced, it's not been reduced all that much. It still seems to be fairly abundant at this point in the world gen, and maybe we'll find a little bit more iron the further down we go. I've been finding iron much more successfully when you get down to levels like Y16 and below, basically the levels that you used to find diamond in older generation, but yeah, it looks like we are finding it on the surface in caves now, which is good. And we got a little bit more around the corner here as well. This is really good because I think a lot of people didn't feel super confident going caving until they had decent iron armor. People don't typically stop to make leather armor all that much in Minecraft, and it felt like Mojang was sort of artificially slowing the progression down a little bit by causing iron to spawn so low in the world, or at least surface iron. And nobody really wanted to go strip mining for iron further up in the caves when they still only had stone tools and strip mining would be kind of slow. It seems like iron is starting to come back into the balance a little bit more. But now that I've been able to smelt up the 5 iron I've gathered so far, we're still only at Y47, so we've been able to find a little bit in a surface cave more easily. I can make myself a bucket of water if I wanted to, or save that for a flint and steel if we wanted to travel to the nether, get some shears for various other bits and pieces. I think we can do pretty well at this point. So it's good to see iron coming back into the balance of these early caving expeditions, and potentially people can start skipping leather again if they even considered leather to begin with. And that's really going to be the purpose of this video, is seeing how frequently we stumble across iron. Right now it seems like we are getting it in a section of each of these caves, really. Maybe like only 1 or 2 iron appears at a time, and copper is still, it seems, appearing more frequently. But I think this is one of the Noodle caves that we were talking about. We're seeing a lot of cave generation that kind of connects up and leads off into lots of different passageways, which caving did before, but it wasn't always this reliable. It does seem like there are things that you can follow down further into the earth, and they lead to some really interesting terrain formations. And a little bit of a tussle with a skeleton happening here, but we did just run into another little patch of iron. There we go, we've got a few mobs fighting each other around here, so we can hopefully use that to our advantage and then make a hasty retreat while that skeleton shoots at us. I need to get some food. And there we go, we're healing up now. That was a bit of a rough spot, actually. I'm playing on hard and I don't have any armor made up yet, but no, we've managed to clear out the mobs here. And as I was saying, we did just stumble upon another patch of iron, so we do have a decent amount of iron at this stage. Yeah, there's some right here as well. And of course, as I was mining that out, a creeper came and exploded in my face, but we're fine. Thankfully, shields still block all of the creeper damage. I'd say we're a decent distance into this cave now. We're around Y36, 38, around that sort of level, and we've got a decent chunk of iron there. We've got a little bit more over here as well, and once again, this cave is carving off in all of these different directions, leading us to, hopefully, a little bit more iron. And right now I'm not seeing copper in every single surface, which is a good sign that those two materials are a little bit more in balance now. But at least I've got hold of enough iron with a very brief trip into these caves that I should hopefully be able to make myself a decent amount of iron armor. Yeah, we've got 16 raw iron right now, and we'll be able to grab a little bit more here and there, which means we should be able to make a full suit of iron armor relatively quickly here. I've even found a little underground lava lake down here that we should be able to smelt up the rest of that iron with, so that's a fortuitous thing to find. We'll grab the bucket back and maybe grab a little bit more lava so we can deal with some mobs if they come down here, but that's looking good. So far, we got a bunch of iron without having to go strip mining for it or even head down into the lower levels of the world, so it looks like iron is definitely a little bit more abundant and a little bit more reliable to find in some of these caves. There we go, from those few little patches of iron I found, I managed to get myself enough for a chest plate, iron leggings, and iron boots, so I am 3/4 of the way kitted out, and all I need left over is the helmet, so I'm feeling pretty well protected for my next trip into the caves, and the caves have a lot of different directions they can go in. As we round the corner here, we should spot a couple more useful patches of resources. There we go, we got some more iron there as well. And if I wander down further into the world, this granite patch here might be the start of a huge copper vein. We'll see if we can dig out some of that maybe, or maybe if we continue exploring around here, we might find the rest of the iron we need to complete our whole set. Yep, there we go. There's a patch right here next to me, and it looks like that goes into the wall a little bit as well. There's 5 iron there, or more. That should be enough to complete our full set of iron armor. So that's looking pretty good. I think we found enough iron very easily without the need to worry about where all of that is coming from, and it's going to be nice and easy to find iron if it remains this way in future snapshots. Just in case that cave turned out to be a fluke, I've come out to another set of caves a little bit further away. I haven't scouted these beforehand or anything. I just wanted to run into a different set of caves and see how easy it was for us to find surface iron. It looks like this one kind of opens out into a ravine on this side, but other than that, I don't really see many other places to go. We've got some iron right there. Opposite some copper, we got a bit of copper there, and as we go down into these, this looks like a kind of noodle cave formation, but that little patch of iron there seems like the only thing that I can see right away. It's already 2 iron under our belt though, and if I head out in this direction, it may be that we're about the right sort of level that we should hope to start finding iron around here. Then it looks like this is a noodle cave heading off in a few different directions. A bit more copper, got a bit more copper there as well, and let's see if this one yields any iron further down. This, once again, every time I see granite and copper next to each other, I get excited because I'm wondering if we're stumbling upon a huge vein. We hit a dead end in that direction without a great deal more iron over there, but let's see if we head this way a little bit more. We got some copper there, plenty of coal around, so we can always smelt any of this stuff we find. That's a little dead end on the side there. Let's see if we find any iron around this corner. And we're not really finding a whole lot of it right now. So it is still relatively scarce. It's been reduced in quantity a little bit. And that's something else I wanted to bring up from the changelog, is that despite iron having been a little bit more exposed further up, there are now smaller veins of it further down. Okay, yeah, having run around this cave a little bit, we've stumbled upon, a really nice intersection here at Y46 with a bunch of exposed iron right there. So it took me a couple of other tunnels to find this, and we didn't really find a great deal of other iron in the meantime, but it has kind of been the case that iron is going to be rebalanced, so it's slightly more on the surface further up in the world, and then further down, the veins aren't quite as large. The larger ore veins of iron are still going to be generating below Deepslate levels, below Y0, and we're going to be seeing a lot of iron ore there, but it does seem like they've kind of evened out how iron is distributed above that. And this vein was actually a really nice little windfall there. If we open up the inventory now, 17 iron. Okay, so that's a really nice find from those 2 patches of iron, and that would put you in good stead for a caving expedition, once again, around Y46. So not having to go too far down in the world to find iron anymore. I think that's pretty good. So to clarify what I mean here, to quote the changelog exactly, they have extended the vertical range of smaller blobs of iron ore to make it more likely to find iron in caves near the surface, but they have slightly reduced the amount of normal-sized iron ore blobs to compensate for large ore veins and the increased range of smaller blobs. So basically, we are going to be seeing a little bit less massive pockets of iron further down, but we're still going to be finding those large ore veins, and potentially we're going to be seeing a lot more even distribution of it once we get closer to the surface. We can see a bit more iron in the walls up there, and the cave bottoms out around Y19. So what I might start doing is digging a little bit further down, and it looks like we've actually stumbled upon a really good spot to do that, because if I ride this water source down right into this creeper, we're going to see a few changes to the underground here as well. So this iron ore is right here next to some redstone ore, so we can already tell that we are down pretty far in the world. I'd say we're around Y5 is where these caves really start to generate, and we're at Y8. Okay, great, so that's kind of ideal, really. What I wanted to show you is the fact that around here, you're going to see no more blobs of Deepslate ore generating above Y0. That is another big change they have made to these caves. You see some lapis up there in the walls as well, and I wonder if we might spot a little bit of diamond as we travel around here, but really, you're not going to be seeing any of those pockets of Deepslate anymore, and that's going to be an interesting shift to find between 1.17 and 1.18, because in 1.17 worlds, we are going to have those pockets of Deepslate, if only because there would be no way of finding Deepslate otherwise, whereas after 1.18 comes into play, when the caves generation changes permanently, you're actually going to find that Deepslate only generates below Y0 in those cavern layers. So we're actually going to find that Deepslate becomes a little bit less abundant, although because it constitutes so much of the underground, you're not going to have a hard time finding it. You just need to go down below Y0. And as we can see from the start of this cavern here, it is still going to kind of dither itself into the rock around the outside. This is at Y0 though, so we're not noticing any more of those blobs of Deepslate kind of cluttering the cave environment above this. It really starts to delineate that lower level of caves. And I'm not entirely certain why that is. Maybe putting Deepslate at Y0 was a compromise just so that players could have access to it once the Caves and Cliffs update was split. Maybe they're just responding to feedback that I've seen some players point out that the underground kind of looked a little bit messy once you got down to this level and Deepslate blobs and tuff started appearing everywhere. Maybe they just thought it made for a better transition without those blobs, but if you are upgrading your world from 1.17 to 1.18, those Deepslate blobs are still going to be in areas where you've already generated the world. I tell you what though, it is so nice being able to explore these areas again without lag spikes, and some of the cave formations are frankly pretty beautiful. I'm actually looking for coal right now so I can light a little bit more of my way around the underground, and there is a little patch up there that I might try and grab hold of. But yeah, coal definitely becomes very scarce down here, and we're going to need to spend a little bit more time gearing up with torches before we take a trip into a cave system like this. There we go, we got a decent amount of coal, and I can light a little bit more of the underground up here. I don't really plan on exploring a huge amount more of this world. I'm pretty satisfied with this, and I've got to say that every time I see one of these refinements made to cave generation, I feel more and more confident that the cave update is really going to shine. Once 1.18 comes out and these changes are made in the world in general, it's going to be a fabulous update, and I really can't wait to see it actually implemented in 1.18. For now, though, we're going to leave this part of the world behind, and we're going to go in search of some other stuff. But first, I'm going to change my game mode into spectator, so we can take a quick look through the scenery here and take a look at some more of those Noodle caves. So while everything here is going to look a little bit chaotic for a moment because of all of the caves sort of generating and overlapping like this, and trust me, night vision, I tried it, it doesn't make these areas look a whole lot better. What you actually find is that these Noodle caves do a really good job of connecting these areas up and forming intersections between them. They're a really nice offset to the cheese cave generation that's used to create those larger caverns lower down in the world, because while of course these are smaller caves and they kind of carve through the rock like this, they do find really neat ways of intersecting, and they are frequent enough that you find cave generation happens in a fairly unique way. Some of the older style of caves that we see in Minecraft 1.16 and earlier did start to feel like once you'd seen one cave you could kind of predict where they were going, and ultimately these feel like a much more organic and less predictable way of generating caves in the underground. And of course, occasionally they lead out into enormous features like this. Every time I see one of these aquifers generating with a waterfall cascading down into a cavern filled with lava, my heart leaps at the thought of what we can do in this next update to Minecraft. And so I think this is really going to be a very, very special time, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what else is possible before the Caves and Cliffs update is fully implemented. Altogether, the underground just feels like it has a more complete picture now, and I'm pretty satisfied finding that. Before we leave this snapshot behind, though, and I say goodbye for the episode, there are a couple of other quick things that I wanted to check in with. So the two changes in this snapshot which are not limited to the Caves and Cliffs datapack for 1.18 are a change to goats and a change to infested stone blocks. Now we can get those out of the building blocks inventory or decoration blocks. I forget where they are. Yes, there they are. Okay, so infested stone is of course the type of stone that you find underground that actually breaks into silverfish. If I go into survival and break this with an iron pickaxe, you should start to see a little bit of a change. Oh, there we go, survival. From the previous implementation of these, where these blocks would break instantaneously. And it used to be that they broke at the same speed or slightly slower than stone, depending on whether you had efficiency on your tools or not. But then when they could break instantaneously, it was a little bit difficult to avoid breaking silverfish stone. Here is some ordinary stone blocks just to kind of demonstrate the break speed of regular stone. And now, according to the snapshot changelog, Infested Stone now has half the time to break that its non-infested counterpart does, meaning that per block there we should have broken the infested stone about twice as fast as the regular stone would break. Now it seems to me that's not quite right, because this right here is the infested stone and that right there is the normal stone. If I break the normal stone, it breaks pretty quickly, and that's more like twice the amount of time. See, that's another infested stone because the silverfish just burrowed away right immediately, and that does seem to be, yeah, you can kind of tell that's the infested stone because it has quite a long time to break. And so I'm not sure if they've expressed that right in the changelog or if the intention was just a little bit different than what the changelog says, but either way, it seems like Infested Stone now is back to the old way where it was taking longer to break than regular stone does. So from that, back into creative mode so we can check out the changes to the humble goat. There are a couple of other goats on the mountainside over there, but there is a 2% chance for a goat to generate as a screaming goat. And screaming goats obviously were popular online a while ago, and it sounds like we may have just got one, unless that was an unexpected goat noise. I don't know. Anyway, we're going to go back into survival mode here for a second because the screaming goats are more likely to be aggressive than the other goats are, and they're going to ram you more frequently. Was that a screaming goat, or was that just a regular goat making a cool noise? Either way, we might get to find out in a second because, yep, it sounds like that one there has just gone ahead and rammed us. Yep, there we go, we heard it. We definitely heard the scream from that one. And there's actually a command you can run to test out whether or not this particular goat is a screaming one. So if we do data get entity like this, and we take the entity ID because we're looking at that goat in particular, there we go. Is screaming goat is the data value we're looking for, and that is set to 1, which means that is most definitely a screaming goat. Now if we take a look at the other goat over here, I'm fairly certain this one is not going to be a screaming goat if we check the entity data over here. There you go, that's the entity data for the screaming goat right there, and it says 0, meaning that is not a screaming goat. If you want to play around with this yourself though, you can get the entity data and do a data merge entity command and add is screaming goat :1 here. Make sure you capitalize all of the right data there, and once we do that, we've modified the data of this goat. So now if we run the data, yep, you can, I mean, it's already screaming at me. You can get the entity data again though, and that one should now show up is screaming goat 1. So yep, now he's yelling at me, but that determines that this is a screaming goat if you want to test out the ramming behavior, because it seems like these goats are going to ram us much more often, and you can probably see this one getting in position to line up, lower the head, and I've been killed by a goat for the first time in Minecraft. Imagine that. Well, much as I'm looking forward to being killed by all manner of things in the Caves and Cliffs update, that's all I wanted to cover for this video. So thank you so much for watching this video and for your patience while I work on other projects behind the scenes. The Minecraft Survival Guide episode 360 is going to be out sometime soon, and in the meantime, I'm playing a lot on the Don't Die SMP over on Twitch, so if you want to come and check that out, that's twitch.tv/Pixlriffs. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care. Bye for now.